A few weeks before we got married, my dad passed away. I walked myself down the aisle. So, one of the things that I've learned about my transition from moving from out of the Philippines to the US is there is a certain grief about that move. A lot of people talk about the fact that you're leaving the Philippines and you're moving into greener pastures and that it's a better place for you, it's a better life. And for us Filipinos, when they hear that someone is leaving the Philippines, it's almost always it's for a better life. And most of the time it's true. But even so, there is still some grief. For us Filipinos, we don't talk about missing the old life as much, even if in our heart of hearts there is something that you miss, not just homesickness, but you're leaving an old version of you and moving into an unknown world. Not a lot of people recognize that and they just forward and soldier on, which is great. But we should have space and make space for that emotion to understand what we're going through. So I moved from BGC Philippines to the US. I'm based out of New England now. My name is Mel, and I'm going to talk about my journey and how I managed my emotions with that move. So just a little backstory. So my fiance and I decided that I was moving out to the US. Back in 2022, we had that conversation. So 2023 was a lot of planning for me to move to the US after we got married in the Philippines. In 2023, so many things happened. So my dad passed away in December of 2023, right before we were about to be married. So a few weeks before we got married, my dad passed away. I'm lucky that my dad and my fiance got to meet before he passed. Of course, he wasn't at the wedding. I walked myself down the aisle. I was still in the process of grieving. So that was December 2023. I had planned to move out here to the US July. That was my birthday month, July of 2024. My fiance, my husband, came over to the Philippines and we traveled together for me to move out here for just 6 months initially. I ended up staying, so that's another story. But that was only about 6 months after my father passed away, and I was still in the process of grieving my father passing. I was in the middle of estate planning. I was helping my family manage my dad's affairs, and I was also managing my own move with 2 senior cats, and at the same time, I was leaving a career that I had been with for 18 years. So there's so many levels of grief that was piled on for my transition, my move out here to the US. And I was really struggling. My husband has been very supportive. He is such a sweetheart. At the end of the day, I am the only person who can understand my own emotions, right? So I talked to him about it. Eventually, I ended up seeing a therapist offered by the job that I'm with now. So that was also very fortunate that I had access to that. I was going through grief of my father's death, grief of my own identity in my career, grief of my identity as a Filipina who's lived in the Philippines for over 40 years and moving to the US. So many levels of grief that I was trying to manage as I was rebuilding my life here. If I take a step back, I know my story is a little bit extreme, but a lot of people who do that move, a similar move out of the Philippines to a different country, do not realize that we had to grieve our old selves for us to move forward and flourish in our new environment. And that's why there's that process. There's like a timeline that you're getting used to the things, and people will say, you're just getting used to the process, you're getting used to the culture. Yes, on top of that, yes, I totally agree. You have to get used to the culture. You have to get used to the practices of that country that you're moving into. But at the same time, you also have to give yourself grace and acknowledge that you are shedding an old version of yourself. Whatever version that was, even if you thought it was not a great version, if you thought it was a great version, you are stepping out of that old you and moving into a new life. That process has grief in it. It's one thing to be happy about where you're moving to, excited about that, great. I acknowledge that. I was excited about that. I was excited to start a new life with my husband. There's also the process that I acknowledged where I left behind an established life and I left behind my family. I left behind everything I knew to move into this new chapter. If you are going through the same process of moving out of your home country to another country. Give yourself time and acknowledgement and grace to know that you are going through the motions of grief. And it's not just putting on a brave face and being happy all the time for people who are maybe relying on you, who have been waiting for you to move, who are excited to see you in the new world. But give yourself grace and talk about how you're feeling. And also educate them that this is an old life that you're stepping out of and you're stepping into a new life, so that you have that support. For me, what worked was talking to my husband about it and making sure that I explained as best as I could what I was going through and what I was feeling. The other aspect of it, I had access to a therapist. If you can talk to a professional, please go ahead and do that. And the third is I found ways to entertain myself. So I learned how to knit. I learned how to sew. I was cooking a lot because I couldn't work. I didn't have a work visa the first months I was here. I didn't have a work visa. So I had to entertain myself with things around the house. I was trying out different recipes, doing patterns. I visited craft stores a lot and came home and I was knitting. Find ways to enrich your life while you are exploring your new world. My husband helped me out by making sure that, because it was summer when I moved here, so we went to different places. Like there was a sunflower festival we went to, there was an Asian festival we went to in Boston. I think there was also a Filipino festival that we visited for a weekend in Boston, which was super fun. Look for ways to entertain you and entice you into this new chapter. It's not one or the other. It's not black or white, that it's okay, old life, new life, poof. It's not like that. It's a transition period. And that's why I talk about this liminal space that I'm in. And it's been 3 years, almost 3 years that I've moved. And I'm still in that liminal phase. I'm still learning about myself in this new world. I'm still learning how to evolve into this new chapter that I'm in. So my advice is give yourself time, give yourself grace, and surround yourself with people who will listen to you and will make an effort to try to understand what you're going through. They won't exactly understand what you're going through because only similar people who have made the transfer out of your home country would know, and it won't be the exact same thing for everyone. But if you surround yourself with people who support you, they will be there for you. And that's how I was able to slowly emerge from that grief puddle that I was in. And in the moment that I was emerging out of that grief puddle, so I was working out, I was doing my walks, I was doing all of those things that enriched my life. After I got my work visa, I started making friends outside of my little bubble. A few months after I started work, one of my 2 cats passed away. The eldest one, Oliver, passed away. So I wasn't even done with the grief that I was processing, and here it was another major blow to me. So it just felt like it was one after the other, and the same things helped me. When that happened, I was already working, so that helped me manage what I was going through to some degree. To some degree it did not, because I needed to show up at work and be brave and be presentable while I was going through all of those grief points. But with all the support around me, with my husband, with my therapist, and having that knowledge that I needed to make sure I was taking care of myself by moving, looking for things to enrich my life and entertain me, and distract myself positively from wallowing in grief, helped me little by little get out of that hole that I was in. So for anyone going through a similar transition now, hang in there. Give yourself some time, give yourself some grace, and try to build a support system around you so that you have a group of people to lean on, especially in this very intense transition of your life. We will eventually get there. I'm slowly moving towards that phase, I hope. I have had the chance to speak with people who have gone through the same process and they're happier. Some of them, it took 10 years. Some of them, it took a couple of years, maybe 3 years. But we are eventually going to get there. So we'll all do this together. Thank you for listening and for watching, and see you soon.